sports and so on. So what I'm going to give you is just one example of each one of them to show you what each these genres mean. Okay. So as you know, birds are a very popular uh, subject for photographers. They're very tough to do because one, they're small, they're shy, they're far away. You also require a lot of expensive equipment to do that, but nevertheless, because birds by themselves are very beautiful, it's a very attractive subject for many photographers. Okay. And of course, we have animals, wildlife. You can see our ancestor there, or one of our, what should say, very close cousins in terms of DNA, if not the other things. Okay. So you must be knowing chimpanzees and humans have 98% common DNA. It's only the 2% which makes a chimpanzee and a human. This is not a chimpanzee, but I'm just okay. This is an orangutan. Okay. Landscapes. The beautiful vistas which you see generally are very appealing to the eye, and landscape photography is also a very popular subject. And incidentally, if you want to take landscapes, you really need not run all over the world. You can take very good pictures of landscapes in and around Hyderabad too. In fact, this particular thing I have taken it not even maybe 1 kilometer from here, near Durgam Cheru. So whenever you think of landscapes, don't think you have to buy an air ticket and go to Grand Canyon in US. You can do a lot of interesting things close by too. Okay. Architecture. See, good buildings are a art by themselves. Just like they are like a good sculpture or a good painting, very nicely organized and so on and so forth. That's why people with a lot of money spend a lot of time on their houses, building beautiful houses. And photographing them itself is a subject by itself. And architecture photography is something technically very challenging. I don't want to go into the details, but it is very difficult to do. And there are many people who do it both as a passion as well as for literature, producing brochures and all. So landscape photography is one more genre which is very powerful. Macro photography is a field of photography where you photograph very small subjects. What you see is a part of a lady's watch, actually. You can see the gear wheels and all those things. So the actual subject here is probably around 1 centimeter by 1.5 centimeters or something like that, very, very small. Maybe as big as your fingernail, okay? So photographing very small objects like that, microscopic objects, or small insects and flowers and all comes under this genre called macro photography. This once again really requires some special equipment, but it's a very fascinating thing because it allows you to see certain things which are not visible to your naked eye. Only when you see through the camera, it opens up a whole new world which is otherwise not visible to you. Then portraits. Everybody who has a camera has taken a picture of another person. Okay. Now I just now saw a lot of people were posing for some mug shots. Okay. So they were getting themselves photographed. So I'm sure all of you who had a camera would have taken a picture of your friend or a family member and so on. So they all come under the so-called portrait photography. Portrait photography is not only popular because statistically speaking, a great majority of the pictures taken by people are of other people. Okay, so that way it is perhaps the most popular genre of all, and the portrait photography of course falls in many different categories. One of them is formal portraits, where often you may go to a studio and get yourself properly photographed in a proper attire, maybe wearing a suit or something like that. That's a formal portrait is what they call. Okay. Now formal portraits are taken after one's marriage or in corporate brochures, etc. It normally shows a person in his best. Probably sometimes they even add some surroundings or props around him to make him look what he is. In the sense that, for example, if you're photographing a great cricketer, probably you will not photograph him like that, but probably you'll keep a cricket bat or something like that. Or if it's a corporate chairman or somebody, you keep his corporate office or some books or laptop or something around him and so on. So you create a sort of a theme to make him say that, okay, this man is a is a chief executive of a company or is a great cricketer or so on and so forth. So the theme is developed in a formal portrait sometimes. Okay. Informal portraits are what you normally take of your family members and friends, where you call a guy, okay man, stand here, let me take a picture of you, and so on and so forth. Then put him on the Facebook and so on and so forth. So that's still a very popular, in fact the most popular, I would say, way of using your camera. Okay. So the previous slide. Environmental portraits are the ones which are getting very popular these days, though the circumstances are becoming difficult, in the sense that normally environment portrait is a portrait you take of a person in his working environment. Okay. So this particular guy is a small roadside restaurant guy who's, if you call it a restaurant, or maybe a food kiosk, where this guy was making some chapatis in the old city. Okay. So if you take your camera and you walk around, perhaps you can take a lot of pictures, or you can go to an artist in his studio and photograph him working. Or similarly, you can take a mason working in his, maybe constructing something and so on. Such photographs which portray a person along with the environment he is working are called environmental portraits. This is one example. Okay. The candid photography is also very popular. It could get into trouble because the subject may sometimes subject. A good ethics, I would put it this way, is to ask the subject that you are photographing, and would he or she like to get photographed, if possible, of course. But otherwise, many people do this. In fact, a lot of people are these days doing street photography, which is essentially candid photography, because you take a camera, you roam around the streets and take photographs of people going about their jobs. Either they are street vendors or somebody waiting in a bus stop talking on a phone, whatever it is, somebody waiting for something, or getting annoyed about the traffic jams or whatever it is. All those things come under candid photography. You can even take a photograph of your friend, but the only thing is, when you take a candid photograph, the subject is not aware that he is being photographed. So in a way, many people say a posed photograph is rubbish. You got to capture a person in his natural mood and natural expression. So that way, candid photography is the one which captures all a man in his natural elements, or a man or a lady in his natural elements. Okay, so that comes under candid photography. Okay, sports. Of course, sports by and large is a major what do you call. Most of the newspapers and all, they're very largely involved into sports photography. Normally amateurs don't do much of a sports photography unless he or his friend is playing some game and you want to capture while playing the game. Otherwise, it's more a something connected with photojournalism, where you are sports photographers for papers, magazines, where they go and photograph. Okay. So that's about the various genres of photography. You must have involved in some of these already. So let's move on and look at some more things about what photography means. Okay. Now, first of all, when you take a photograph very casually, perhaps you are doing what I would call really not a photograph, but rather a snapshot. Okay. So what's the difference between a snapshot and a photograph? Okay. So these are a few points which I put together to where I would like to say that a snapshot is really different from a photograph. Okay. So what are these? First thing is the proper lighting. After all, photograph means drawing with light, so the light has to be proper. Then good composition. Okay. We'll see what this good composition means. Okay. Now, the very important thing is every photograph has to have a subject. Okay. Now, unless that subject is there, there's no meaning. Even if you're writing a report in your office, there has to be a subject. You can't simply write some garbage and give it or something like that. So just like when you are doing a task, you have an aim to complete something. A subject should have a central theme in it, and that's the subject. Okay. Preferably that should be large and dominating over the rest of the items in it, so that you can clearly say, okay, I am photographing this person or this mountain or this building or something like that. It has to be identifiable and large and prominent. Then it should be ultimately pleasing to the eye. See, I will give you one simple example. If you open a magazine and you start leafing, you will flip through some pages very quickly and pause at some pictures. Why? Because there is something in that picture which stops you there and makes you look at it or observe it in little more detail. So by following certain rules and certain things, you can make a picture more appealing to the eye. So that is essentially what composition is. It lays down the different parts in a photograph in an orderly way to convey a meaning to the viewer. Only when something like that is there, the viewer will be attracted to looking at the photograph. Otherwise, just like you flip through, you just move to the next one. Okay. So let's see in little more detail how to do this. Okay. Now, you must have all done schooling, and in